Hello everyone, welcome to a quick update for my Pan That palette with the Master Palette by Mario. So I've made some really good progress over the last month, and I've also decided to make a couple Franken shadows because I was a little bit bored with this palette. So it's nothing too crazy, it's nothing too drastic, but it's just enough to keep me going with the palette. So this is what my palette looked like at my last update, and this is what it looks like now. So as you can see, I have finished 2 shades and I've created 2 new shades. So the 2 shades I finished were Kim and Muse. So that means I have a total of 5 shadows that are finished. At my last update, I talked about Marina, 5th Avenue, and Paris. So over the last month, I finished Kim, the metallic orange shade, and Muse, the beautiful red metallic shade. I really loved using that shadow. The more I use these Anastasia metallic shadows, the more I love them. You can tell I'm a little not as fond of the matte formula in this palette as I am with the metallics. I've completely fallen in love with the way that they perform, and I've stuck with my very simple looks as I've talked about in my previous updates. Nothing much has changed. I was still using Kim and Muse all over my lid, so not together actually, just one shadow kind of looks where I would just have Kim blown out all over my eye, and then I would pair a different eyeliner or sometimes some glitter. I've been using these Pixie by Petra, these little fairy light glitters, just a tiny bit in my inner corner, just because I love glitter so much, and this has been really fun to use. I used Crystalline with Muse a lot, the red, because this has a blue reflect, so I'd have just this really iridescent blue, tiny bit of glitter in my inner corner, and then the rest of my eye was all red. I would on occasion use the mattes to help blend out the shadows a little bit, or to add a little extra dimension, but I definitely need a light hand with the mattes because they're very powdery. Now I'm starting to use them a little bit more because I'm getting down there with what's left in the palette. So that's actually part of the reason I decided to make some Franken shadows was for the shade Lula, because I was using this as a crease shade, but I felt like there was nothing in this palette that was really pairing well with it. Like I was trying to use it with some of the things that I had left and nothing was really working. I wanted something that was a little bit neutral, maybe even something a little bit cooler, and I found myself reaching for other palettes. So I'm definitely bringing back Project Pan Porn to help me finish up this palette because I need a little bit more structure. But in the meantime, I'm going to try and finish a couple of shades first. So anyway, let's talk about my Franken shadows. So the first Franken shadow I have here is Hollywood. So Hollywood was just this pale beige with a slight shimmer. It wasn't a metallic, and I was running out of ways to use it and I was very uninspired by it. So what I ended up doing is mixing it with a shadow from the Urban Decay Heavy Metals palette. Because this is a palette I don't really reach for very often because it's bulky. I don't really like the packaging, but the Urban Decay Metallics are some of my absolute favorite eyeshadows, so I thought that I would put this to good use. So I mixed Hollywood with the shade Acoustic in the Heavy Metals palette, and I used quite a bit of it actually. And Acoustic is just this lovely cooler tone, like white gold. I've loved using it, and now I've mixed it with Hollywood and I love the result. I love the way that it turned out. I am wearing a ton of these shadows on my eye today. I just sort of threw them all on there, but I'm using a lot of Hollywood on my lid, and I just like the way that this turned out. I just did this recently because I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do or if I was going to do it, because I've done the Franken shadow thing before and I didn't want to go too crazy and put in a whole bunch of new shadows in here like I did last year with the MAC Burgundy x9 palette. So instead I just stuck with mixing what I was still working on. So the Hollywood shade is going to be so easy to use paired with Lula. That way I have that really soft, like diffused crease with the matte shade, and then just a little bit of that metallic shade on my lid. I feel like I can burn through those pretty fast. As for NYC, NYC is this reddish brown, and I was using it a lot in the same way I was using Kim and Muse and some of the other shadows that I finished before, just all over the lid. You know, kind of a more dramatic smoky eye, really embracing the red tones in the shadow, and I liked it, but I was just kind of bored with it. So I ended up mixing it with Angel Fire from the Heavy Metals palette, which is a really pale metallic pink with some really fine glitter in there. And so it just made the shadow a little bit lighter and have that interesting reflect now with the pink glitter. So I think that they mixed really well together. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to mix with NYC. I didn't want a darker metallic. I wanted something a little bit lighter, and Angel Fire turned out really, really well. So it's really easy to do this if you want to do this. There's plenty of instructions out there on YouTube, and if you just Google like how to repress an eyeshadow, because you would use the exact same steps, except for instead of just repressing the one shadow, you are mixing things together. And how you decide what you want to mix is totally up to you. You can pick whatever you want, and it's fun to experiment and play around with it. Don't use your absolute favorite shadows, like don't use the very last bit of that whatever limited edition thing that you've been hanging on to. Don't do that. But play around with some of the things you've been neglecting or things you feel like you won't use, and come up with different color combinations. If you're unsure, swatch things and layer them like on your hand. Get an idea before you start taking the shadows apart. I really like using toothpicks to scrape the shadow out into a little container. You just need some alcohol then to mix it all together, and then you can pour it into the pan and repress it. And it's really, really simple. Once you do it a few times and you kind of have an idea of what the exact ratio you need in terms of the amount of shadow and the amount of alcohol, and making sure you mix it thoroughly so you have a really good paste. That would be my best advice if you want to create your own Franken shadows. It's a lot of fun, and I just know that it's going to be very easy to use my two Franken shadows right now. So my goal is going to be to use those up. Specifically, I'm going to aim for Hollywood. I'm going to try and hit pan on Lula as well. I feel like I'm really, really close because I've been using a very big, fluffy crease brush. So instead of wearing away the pan on a specific spot, it's kind of been all over. That was the case I had with Isabel as well, where it was like, I'm never going to hit pan on this. I'm never going to hit pan on this. Oh, look at all this massive pan. It goes from looking like it's almost untouched to having this giant pan on it just because of the way that I've been using the shadow. And I feel like I might actually be close to hitting pan on Violetta as well, the warm matte brown shade. Violetta is just such a deepening shade for me, and I just don't do it very much on the daily because I really keep everything very simple-ish. So I do want to use that a little bit more, but that might end up waiting, and then Bronx and Claudia will be my fall shades. So I think I am right on track with this palette to finish it before the end of the year. I feel like if all goes well, I should be finished this by November sometime, and that's perfect because I've already used these shadows so much. And that was the good thing about picking this palette to pan, is that I had already used so much of it before. I had already had pan on so many of the shadows that I had a really good head start. So I feel very confident about that. This palette is so beat up now. I was trying to like clean it up, and then I was like, there's no point. I've crossed the point of no return, and once this palette is gone, I'm going to be trashing it. I need to stop hanging on to stuff like this that I've panned because it's done. I've got the videos to remember. I don't need the actual palette itself, and this is just so beat up. It's very well loved, and that is good, and it's taught me a lot, so I'm very happy about that. Anyway, as I said, I will be bringing back Project Pan Porn probably next month. I'm going to need a combination of some matte shades, and I'm going to need some metallics, so it'll be a good time to bring Project Pan Porn back. So I'm looking forward to that. If there are any specific palettes you would like to see me throw into a Project Pan Porn, make sure to let me know. And if you have any questions for me about my Pan That palette or anything else, as always, please let me know. I am unfortunately not a mind reader, so if you're thinking about something or wondering about something, I can't address it unless you ask me. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead of you, and I hope we get a chance to chat soon. Bye for now.